When was the last time you felt free? I mean, think about it. What is true freedom anyway? Some might say that freedom is the ability to do anything you want without the fear of consequence. If that's the case, then if you were the only person left living on the planet, then you should be able to experience freedom 24/7, right? Or maybe if you're home alone, maybe you don't have to be the only one left on the planet. I imagine most people would say yes, but I can think of a couple of people who might beg to differ. Number 1, Immanuel Kant, and number 2, Eren Yeager. I know what you're thinking. What does the famous philosopher Immanuel Kant have to do with Attack on Titan's protagonist Eren Yeager? Well, not much when you look at things on surface level, but when you dive into their life philosophies, you might be a little surprised. While Kant has various philosophical theories revolving around rationalism, his take on freedom offered me a ton of insight on why Eren is the way he is.
If we did cross the sea, and we killed our enemies, after that, would we finally be free?
Immanuel Kant believed that true freedom was autonomy over even your body's basic desires. He argues that we are only really free when we act in our own best nature, and that we are slaves whenever we are under the rule of our own passions. Kant argues that when we, like animals, seek after the satisfaction of our desires, that we aren't really acting freely. Why not? Well, he says that we're really acting as the slaves of those appetites and impulses. I didn't choose this particular hunger or this particular appetite, and so when I act to satisfy it, I'm just acting according to natural necessity. And for Kant, freedom is the opposite of necessity. Think about it this way. Remember that Sprite slogan? It said something like, "Obey your thirst."
Your thirst, Sprite.
Basically conveying this message to viewers. Hey, you're thirsty, right? Go ahead and quench your body's desire for a drink with the Sprite. I can't even lie, that's a great slogan. I might even go get me a Sprite after hearing that. But if you think about it, that slogan kind of confirms Kant's ideas surrounding our desires not being related to our free will, but instead a baser instinct that must be obeyed. And there are various moments throughout the Attack on Titan series that Eren employs the very same line of thinking that Kant also employs. Here are some examples. First of all, Eren becomes obsessed with acquiring true freedom from a very young age. Once Armin informed him of there being a world outside the walls, he comes to the realization that he was never really free. He was only living within an illusion of what freedom was. His actual reality is akin to that of a cattle that has many acres of land to tread but is still within the confines of a fence. This seems to be why he looks up to the scouts and is generally enchanted by their wings of freedom. The scouts are the only regiment that dare to explore the world beyond the wall, and the only group brave enough to tread Titan territory. Once he joins the scouts, however, Eren comes to realize that even the scouts don't fit within the scope of his ideas around freedom. He's actually surprised by the fact that Levi, even despite being the strongest human alive, obeys his superior's demands without objection. As Eren grows older, he comes to the realization that gaining freedom is not as easy as killing all the Titans, and thus being able to explore the outside world without objection is not as easy as doing or accomplishing either. He now knows that behind these Titans are humans. Humans he too must defeat for his freedom. From this point on, we get a time skip, and it is after this time skip that Eren's view on freedom undergoes a significant shift. One that is now akin to Kant's philosophy. Eren begins to associate true freedom with a will that is not controlled by baser desires, but instead rationale. How can my will be determined if not by the prompting of my hunger and desires? Well, Kant's answer to this is to act freely is to act autonomously, and to act autonomously is to act according to a law that I give myself, not according to the physical laws of nature or the laws of cause and effect. We see Eren promote this line of thinking in various scenes and chapters. This is a total spoiler alert, so if you're going to continue to watch it going forward, please note that there will be spoilers from the chapters, starting with chapter 112, the infamous chapter 112 that single-handedly made my heart sink and was this close to making me stop reading Attack on Titan. And this is when Eren accuses Armin of no longer being able to think rationally, due in part to acquiring Bertolt's colossal titan and thus his memories as well, which leads him to going from a kid who once asked Eren to abandon his humanity to someone who has become far more complacent and almost pacifistic. In that same chapter, Eren also accuses Mikasa of being no different than a slave, shackled down by her inclinations to obey her baser desires to protect him. Not because she actually chooses to do so, but because she is an Ackerman, and she's driven by her own DNA. He expresses that he believes that she is no different than cattle, and that there is nothing he hates more than someone who is not free. Now, this has already been disproven in later chapters, and it's also been made clear that he knew that this was incorrect from the beginning. And while he might have had ulterior motives to hurting Mikasa and Armin, I think part of his resentment ties back to what he may perceive as their own abandonment of rationale in exchange for obeying their baser desires for a less violent resolution. Something he does not see as being practical at that point, and for good reason. Another example of this is in chapter 133. It states, "I took the world's freedom to achieve my own, but I will not take yours. You are free. My freedom to keep moving forward, your freedom to save the world." This was a really profound moment to me, and it was in this chapter that I realized that Eren's whole ideology surrounding freedom has completely shifted, and it was worth investigation. Eren's freedom roots from this very concept. He only considers himself free once he is able to abandon his feelings surrounding the cause and effect of his actions on society at large, and only act according to the law he gives himself. Consideration of the feelings of others only shackles him and prevents him from behaving as autonomously as he would like, so he completely abandons it. And in doing so, he invites his friends to behave autonomously as well, even if it means he will be killed, because that is true freedom, and it's true freedom that he wants for his friends. Now, this segues perfectly into a brief conversation or discussion regarding Eren's morale. Well, I don't want to get into too far into my own opinions surrounding Eren's ethics, especially in a show like Attack on Titan, where everyone, and I mean everyone, is constantly in some shade of gray. Kant makes an argument about morale that I think connects a lot to Eren, especially when it comes to Eren, like in the most recent chapters. Essentially, Kant believed in the categorical imperative. According to Kant, a categorical imperative will be one which represented an action as objectively necessary in itself, without reference to any other purpose. In other words, act so that you treat humanity, whether in your own person or in that of another, always as an end and never as a means only. Kant argues that what makes an action morally worthy has little to do with the consequences that come as a result of those actions, but actually has more to do with the motives and the intentions for which the action is done. His belief is that the moral worth of an action depends on the motive for which it's done, and the important thing is that the person do the right thing for the right reason. A good will isn't good because of what it affects or accomplishes, Kant writes. It's good in itself, even if its utmost effort to goodwill accomplishes nothing. It would still shine like a jewel for its own sake as something which has its full value in itself. And so for any action to be morally good, it's not enough that it should conform to the moral law. It must also be done for the sake of the moral law. In other words, I think Kant would have given Eren a pass for the rumbling which is just a euphemistic term for genocide. Anyway, that's the video. I was looking into Kant and studying him, and I thought it was really interesting that there was a lot of parallels between him and Yeager, and I often question whether or not the author meant for this to be the case, whether or not he was looking into philosophy and was like, this would be a cool ideology for one of my characters to carry. And either way, whether it was intentional or not, he's still a genius. I think that it's so fascinating. Let me know what your thoughts about this are in the comments below. Do you think Eren achieved true freedom? Do you think Kant's outlook on freedom and morale are reasonable? I am excited to read your thoughts and keep the conversation going. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. There are more videos like this to come, so don't worry, there are so many more. So until then, tuning out. Thank you so much.